back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Series 9's The Girl Who Died, written by Stephen Moffat and Jamie Matheson, and is directed by Ed Bazalgette, who makes his first Doctor Who story he directed. Although I do believe he directed one of the short episodes that's teased into the Magician's Apprentice. So this isn't his first connection with Doctor Who per se, but this is the first story he directed within the main series itself. Now, Series 9 was a series that was advertised as mainly two-parters. However, we have a strange one, because instead of doing two parts, two episodes, what we have instead is one episode, one story of a duology, a story that revolves around the character of a shielder, played by Maisie Williams, who at this point in her career, she was probably one of the biggest kid actresses on the planet, for starring in a big and important role in the massive hit TV series The Game of Thrones. And so she was really high profile, and this story was mainly advertised for two reasons. One, it was the story that introduced Maisie Williams' character to the series, and it also, as well, it was advertised as giving us the origins of the 12th Doctor's face, which doesn't really play much part into the story, if we're going to be honest. It only appears at the end. But a bit of context, Peter Capaldi had previously been in Doctor Who prior to his casting as the Doctor. He was in the stories The Fire of Pompeii, starring David Tennant and Catherine Tate, way back in Series 4. He got into the role because he was a massive fan of the series, and he always wanted to get into Doctor Who, so he took that role. He also as well appeared as Frobisher in the Torchwood series Children of Earth. But when he was cast as the 12th Doctor, there was this kind of crepicy. It's like, hold on, you can't play the Doctor, you've already been in Doctor Who. Even though that's not stopped actors like Colin Baker, who had previously appeared in the series before. But they made an emphasis of this in Capaldi's debut story, Deep Breath, where we have that scene where he's looking at himself in the reflection, and he's pondering the question on why his predecessors, why his mass conscious, shall we say, chose this face, this particular appearance to take the form of, as if all of his other incarnations, all of his subconscious is trying to tell him something with this face, and this story is what is the answer to that. Even though, like I said, despite it being advertised as the story that gives a resolution to that, it doesn't actually play a big part. It's only literally a scene of the story. And that out of the way, generally the story isn't considered that great. Not that it's bad, but it's mainly forgotten about. It's mainly a story which a lot of people overlook. They watch it, they will forget about it afterwards, and they will get into the next story that they're interested in, or really dislike, and they like to rant about it. But this story usually just gets completely brushed aside upon. Is it worth it? Is it something that we should be remembering? Maybe is there a hidden gem in this story, or is this complete doo-doo? And so let's get into the story at hand. I really do like the directing. Ed Bazalgette gets a great way to show off his directing style right at the start of the story, where we get this kind of James Bond pre-credit sequence. For those of you who don't know, James Bond in the movie franchise would have a trend where they would have a complete, like a little self-contained adventure before the pre-credits, before the credits. Here it's Clara stuck in space in a spacesuit, and she seems to be lost in space as the Doctor's in the TARDIS, seem to be fighting some aliens off screen, as Clara is trying to give the Doctor some directions as to where she is located within space, using the suns and stars, and you've got this like alien creature inside her spacesuit, which is the same spacesuit which the 12th Doctor wore in Kill the Moon, the 11th Doctor wore in Hyde, and the 10th Doctor wore in The Impossible Astronaut and the Satan Pit. So, I think he also wore it in The Waters of Mars as well. I could be wrong on that, but that's really cool, if that is the case. But anyway, that is mainly, though, just set up, just a nice little adventure, a nice little teaser as our characters save the day, essentially, and they land on Earth, and the Doctor and Clara step outside and they get introduced to Vikings who capture them, and the Doctor just tries to show off like his sonic sunglasses, and is just like, you guys will, on my face is more technology than in your entire civilization put together. Only for probably my favourite scene in Series 9, where one of the Vikings just takes the glasses off him and snaps them. Yes! I hate those things. It is clearly a moment which was made specifically for me. You know, Stephen Moffat and Jamie Matheson were talking in a room and they went, Edam didn't like the sonic sunglasses, so let's destroy him at the start of this adventure. That is the actual historical fact on the creation of that scene. There you go. So the Doctor and Clara are actually taken to the little village of Viking soldiers, where we get to meet Ashilda and a few other Vikings, which we'll get onto, but let's get into the main plot first. The Doctor tries to make a plan, something that he's done numerous times, something like the usual routine when it comes to being captured, almost being killed by so-called savage civilizations, where the Doctor will then pretend to be Odin to get himself out of the sticky situation. However, they do not believe him, and in fact, a creature appears from out of from the clouds, almost like a mighty python, Holy Grail kind of effect. Do we get this man who claims to be Odin, who has a much more North mythology accurate costume with the eye patch and the helmet with the massive wings. I think they're wings. If I remember correctly, they're massive wings and, like, you know, Viking armor like. And this creature basically is like, well done, you've earned your place in the halls of Valhalla. And so he sends out his army onto the village and captures all of the soldiers in this village. To which, because Clara is this high-tech and very sassy individual, she gets captured as well by the main villains, and along with Ashilda. As the Doctor, for the first half of the episode, is left to basically defend the village, to set up the village and trying to get them bond together. Though the scene doesn't last very long, because we essentially learn that after all the soldiers were killed, Clara and Ashilda confront this Odin character, and Ashilda, with his gains of confidence, basically proclaims war on the villains of the story, which we learn are called the Myra, one of the deadliest warriors races in the galaxy, apparently. And they basically proclaim, it's like, right, you got the fight, you got the spunk. We also learn a pretty cool villain plan is that these creatures drink testosterone, so they kind of get like the strongest, most manliest people, capture them away, and then kill them, squash them, and turn them into fluid so they can drink the testosterone. I really like that idea, personally. But Shilda will not back down from a fight, and she will, and so she and Clara get sent back to the village as the Myra leader, who takes the form of Odin, proclaims, right, you got until tomorrow to get up your greatest and strongest men so that we can fight and proclaim who rules Earth, essentially. And it's up to the Doctor and Clara to basically teach the village how to fight, and as well as the Doctor having this kind of confidence dilemma, as he's not really sure he should be helping them. He does at start be like, right, I got a great plan. Just leave. Go into the village, run away, hide, and then come back next week or something when the Myra are gone. And there you go, you're alive, it's sorted. But the Vikings, being Vikings and they're having a moral code, will not leave the village and will fight for their honour. And so the Doctor is just like, at the start, he's kind of like, I don't know if I should even get involved. As he explains to Clara, this could be a rippling effect within the timeline. If the humans are able to destroy the Myra, then the Myra, they basically show that humanity here are a really strong force to be reckoned with, and this will send more armies, much more deadlier threats to Earth before they are way capable of even defending themselves in any way, shape or form. And so the Doctor has this kind of moral dilemma here. And now, let's get into the nitty and gritty, because this story does have some really good moments and some really great ideas. What this story does well is what, for the most part, is the 12th Doctor and his dilemma here. It's really interesting. It is really gravitating, and you kind of see his thought process, and you can kind of see what like his idea, because it does feel out of character for the Doctor to consider abandoning the village, but he gave him a way out. From his point of view, it's like they're gonna die with their honor, but they could easily leave. I told them to leave. I gave them a way out. It's actually incredibly easy. These people could survive like that without even giving it much thought, giving it much energy, giving it a lot of thought. But these Vikings, they're headstrong and they're hell-bent, and the Doctor kind of is decided at one point to leave under their own fate because they're Vikings. One of their main attributes, one of their main philosophy is to die a noble death. That's more greater than living an unnoble life, to run away from a fight. And so the Doctor kind of sees this at one point as then him justifying allowing them to die, because it's how they want to die nobly, for their village. But Clara can kind of get the sensation that the Doctor really doesn't want to do this, and Clara knows that the Doctor is somebody who helps people and stuff. Now, the relationship between the 12th Doctor and Clara here, I'm not a particularly fan of. The way Clara is written in this story, she comes off a bit on the nose in terms of the script. It's almost as if she's breaking the fourth wall and she's explaining to the Doctor how the show works in terms of the relationship between the Doctor and Clara, the companion. Where Clara's got this dialogue where it's just like, you will not lose this fight. You will not abandon these people, because I know you leave things to the last minute and then you have a plan. You lose hope and then you gain hope. As if Clara's read the plot. Sure, I get the idea that she's been with the Doctor a long time and she kind of understands his thought process. But the way she's written here, the way the dialogue is scripted, makes Clara feel more like a not a plot convenience, but somebody who pushes the story to a particular point rather than a character herself. But it doesn't mean the 12th Doctor gets some great moments. And so one of the defining moments, one of the great things, is the 12th Doctor in the story. So let's get on to the other characters. Let's be honest, the village is pretty bland. With the exception of a shielder, because she's played by Maisie Williams, I couldn't name you a single character. I couldn't stick to one character. The Doctor does kind of have this kind of bantering with the village, where he kind of gives them their own nicknames. One of them, who turns out to be the father of this baby that the Doctor translates the voice of, because in stories like Good Man Goes to War, the Doctor has been established to speak baby. And Closing Time as well, the Doctor can speak baby. It's something that's canon to Doctor Who, apparently. And he can kind of feel this weight, and he can also hear this idea of the baby says something about the fire in the water, and the Doctor kind of thinks this is kind of a metaphor for like war, and the baby's terrified of the war. I just remember this really great moment when the village, they're just like, right, we will fight for our honour, we will die in the wall of Valhalla, we will go up against Odin's strongest soldiers, and we will win this fight. We will fight, even if we all die. Only to hear a baby crying, and the Doctor's just like, okay, you can put yourself in danger, you are allowed to die for your so-called honour. But what about the baby? What about all the young people who can't consent to this? Who, like, do you put your honour in front of the moral responsibility of a parent? And that does, like, again, that all leads into the 12th Doctor and his relationship with the villager and the villagers, and he has some great banter with them. But the problem is that the villagers themselves are really stock. There's nothing much to them apart from comic relief for the most part. You do have the leader, which is Ashilda's father, or at least we presume he's the leader. He's the one that seems to take the charge when the Doctor isn't, essentially. And the story, because the story is one part of a duology, this is like the only real this story with one of the few one-parters in series 9. You don't really get much feel of the characters, with the exception of Ashilda, played by Maisie Williams, as I keep mentioning. She's kind of this strange character. She has this kind of bubbling personality at first, although she seems a bit shy and a bit awkward, and you can still tell that she is still a kid at heart, though she does try to prove herself at some points. And the Doctor kind of gets this feeling that he's met her before. Now, one criticism that a lot of people have with this story that I don't is the scene where the Doctor realizes, like, sees her, and he basically proclaims that, like, deja vu is basically remembering in the wrong order. A lot of people kind of took that to say that the Doctor is semi-psychic, at least you can see into his own personal future, per se. I took it as, because the Doctor has travelled through many space and times, he has seen Ashilda before in his past, in her future, maybe a glimpse, maybe she was just like a passerby, an extra in a Doctor Who episode. And he can remember her, he can picture her face, but because she didn't have much of an impact on his life up until this point, it's kind of like that vague, like, it's like remembering a song, its title, and you just go, it's kind of like that. That's how I pictured the story anyway. And there's some scenes where her relationship with the Doctor and her ideologies are well established. There's that scene where the Doctor goes into a room and we learn that she likes to make sculptures. She made a sculpture of this Odin Myra character, and she also explains to the Doctor how she's always felt odd, she's always felt strange, though it's a case of see not, speak it, don't speak it rule of directing, because she just kind of says that she's outcasted from everyone else. She seems off to everybody. She says at one point, all the girls think that she's a boy, all the boys think because she's a girl she can't really amount to much. And it's because of some of the people here that's made her feel normal. However, we never see her relationship with anyone else in the village. We never see this relationship of her feeling awkward, feeling distance to certain people. So we never get that feeling. She just seems like your average teenager, but the story tries to claim that she's got much more of a character than she actually is. Which is a shame, because she does have some moments where I feel like the story does try to give her some great character and some great moments, but I do feel they kind of fall flat. A great example is the scene where she stands up to the Odin lookalike, the Odin imposter. She starts a scene, Clara tries to be basically the Doctor in the scene, where she tries to put her arms crossed and she's trying to basically explain her way, make herself look more clever than she actually is, to try and convince the villains that she is much more smarter, intelligent, and she can defeat them without thinking about it too much. And when the characters are talking about how they've just like squashed and killed everybody, she has this really nervous, "What? How could you? I don't understand. I'm so confused." But then out of nowhere, she gains this kind of confidence where she's just like, "No, I must defend my village, and we will fight you until the end." And then right after that scene, she's quickly like, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything. I shouldn't have done anything. I do apologize." And Clara as well in that scene comes off against a completely different character. She comes, I don't know, it's just, Clara's all over the place. And so let's talk about the Myra. The main Myra, the guy who acts like Odin, is played by David Schofield. The way his name is spelt, I want to say it's David Schofield, but that could be mixing up with Philip Schofield. So I don't know. David Schofield. And he's an okay actor, or at least he could be a great actor. He does give this role, he seems to take this role really seriously and gives the role some nuance, but the story doesn't give much to it. In fact, the Myra are a very weak presence into the story. When they appear, they stomp around, and despite them, we've been told constantly that they are one of the dangerous races in the universe, in the galaxy, we don't really get that feeling. The only characters that die is in that room that gets squashed, and the characters stupidly then leave Clara and Ashilda alive. And there's so much little going into it. There's some really humorous moments, like there's the scene where the Doctor's trying to train the village. Like I said, those, it doesn't really amount to much because we don't really know the villagers that well. Where there's one bit, the Doctor makes him train with wooden swords. When one asks, like, "Why can't we train with real swords?" Like, ask him, the one who cut himself using real swords, because we can't be trusted with them. And then later on, it's like, "Right, I'm taking the handlebars off, the practice wheels off the bike, and you can use real swords." And then it cuts to the village almost on fire as one of the characters one of the villagers is knocked out, and the Doctor and Clara basically explain what has happened up to that point between the two scenes. There are some really fun moments, funny moments like that, but it's not really a comedy. It's not a main focus of the vocal point of the story, and so the humour is spread out too thin, too little, for that to be the main enjoyment of the adventure. But the Doctor comes to a realization at one point with the fire in the water, when he realizes that these Vikings have electric eels at their disposal, and he uses that. He comes up with this genius, clever idea to use that against the Myra for their final battle. And so they come to the hall where all the characters are pretending to dance after the Doctor and Clara and the village have sorted out this mass scheme, this mass plan. And their plan essentially is to electrocute some of them. Myra take off some of their helmets, takes off one of the helmets, gives it to Ashilda, who uses her imagination, her creativity to make them see, because they have this hologramic ability. It's a part of their technology is hologram illusions, as the human form that the Odin one looks like. That's not actually its form. It's more like big mouths that cover the entire face with little other facial features, which are cool when we get a look at them. But I feel like they're not cool enough to be like the Jaws effect, where we see them at very little moments, and we don't see a good look at them enough for them to have a great impact, personally. And so Ashilda uses the helmet to project this hologram of a creature, and I really like actually the plan here. It seems very Doctor Who, the solution to this, where basically the Myra are defeated in such a embarrassingly pathetic way, where they get tricked into basically losing to a bunch of Vikings, a lot of an inferior species. And not only that, there's now recording, because Clara used their phone to record them basically panicking at Ashilda's projection, which in reality is actually just a statue of a dragon. So the video shows them basically petrified of the dragon with the Benny Hill theme, and the Doctor basically threatens them. It's like, right, you do not come to Earth again, you will not mention this battle, you will leave this place, and we will not send this this video clip to the intergalactic internet, essentially. And all our characters are shaven and cheering, only to be revealed that due to the helmet being too much for a human to take, Ashilda actually dies, and the Doctor contemplates on this, and this is the scene that ties into the face of the Doctor, which we have to talk about. Essentially, we learn that the Doctor gets, basically, the start of the scene is actually really cool, where the Doctor, he's kind of sick and tired of all this death and this destruction. He tries his best to try and save everybody. He was so confident that he will save everyone. Not a single person will be hurt. But Ashilda, a child, dies in his care, in his scheme. And Clara is just like, it's not your fault. It's not your, you did save the day. And the Doctor's like, I know, but I'm sick of losing, I'm sick and tiring. I just wish I can kind of give up. Until he realises then that is what his face was trying to tell. He took the form of, what was his name, Caecilius, from the Fires of Plain, to remind him to never give up. And so he uses the Myra's technology to basically implant this military healing factor onto Ashilda, bringing her back to life. Now, the first half of that scene is really good. The idea that the Doctor, despite this victory, he mainly focuses on the lower points. He's seen so much of this. He just wishes for once that he could save so many lives, even though there have been stories like the Empty Child and the Doctor Dances, where the Doctor does save everyone. And that's beside the point. Which is that's a Stephen Moffat thing. Stephen Moffat likes the idea that the Doctor saves every single person, despite the fact that Shield is already dead at this point. And going by the way the scene is shot and directed and written and acted and performed, the scene kind of plays out that the moral of the story is that the Doctor, even when somebody dies, the Doctor shouldn't just save everyone, even when they're already dead. There's even kind of breaking the fourth wall moment where the Doctor just turns around and just and for everyone who hears this about me breaking the rules, then I just want to say to hell with you, as he goes in and puts the military thing onto Ashilda's forehead, bringing her back to life. And I feel like this story completely misses the point of the Fires of Pompeii. Because in that story, the Doctor let everyone die. It was part of a fixed event in history. But the moral of the story is you can't save everybody. You can't... Sometimes you've just given two words. Jamie Matheson already knows this in Mummy on the Orient Express. Sometimes you're given two bad choices, but you still got to choose. And the idea of that story, the idea of Donna... at the end of that story of the Doctor saving Caecilius, is that it's not about saving everyone. It's about saving as many as you can. Because it's not about, it's about just saving as many as you can. You might not be able to save everyone, but you can save everyone you can. This seems to go completely against that. This story basically proclaims, yes, Doctor, you can save everyone. You can just bring everyone back to life. And that's... morally, that's messed up. And it really takes a bite out to the story. And But the Doctor is left at the end of the story in a morally grey area, as he does feel like, right, I have done wrong, because he's basically essentially made a shielder an immortal, barring accidents. And so him and Clara travel into the scene, and we get this probably just one of the best looking shots. Actually, I say that. Heaven Sent has the best shots of Series 9. But apart from Heaven Sent, this is clearly the best shot in the series of Series 9, where we see a shielder. She's kind of got this smile, this glad on her face. She's enjoying life. And the camera kind of pans around her, but we see time moving extraordinarily fast, with the sun and the night and day and the stars rolling around and the trees and everything just growing and dying and decaying. When it comes back to her, she kind of has this really sad, almost tearing eye, and then just before the shot ends, the credits start rolling, her face, she kind of has this blank, numb expression on her face. What a fantastic shot. Ed Bazalgette really has some really great shining moments here. I don't think this directing is strong throughout the story. I think there's a lot of great weak moments and a lot of bland setups in terms of camera positioning. But there are, like the opening shot and the end shot, really strong and powerful shots. And so that is The Girl Who Died. And no, a lot of people consider this story kind of bland, kind of forgettable. I personally just don't like this episode. I think it's poorly paced, poorly structured, with bland characters, very little much of interest. It does have a great core with the 12th Doctor for the majority of the story. However, that ending with the Doctor basically comes to a conclusion to his face, which seems to go up against the entire story where his face originally came from. And as well, some of his dialogue here isn't that particularly strong. And his relationship with Clara does feel like Clara is kind of basically tell him the point of the show, which kind of takes me out of the story. The more I watch it, the more I don't like it. It's something I really was kind of really dreading to rewatch this for the marathon. And so that is The Girl Who Died, and it's the first part of this duology. So join me next time for the second part of this duology, as the Doctor goes into the slightly distant future in terms of that story, still in the past. It's not Victorian times, is it? Where he gets reunited with a shielder, finds out what she's been up to since their previous encounter, as they must stop a lion-like alien from destroying the Earth with its armada. So join me next time for The Woman Who Lived, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!